Have you ever bought a course that you were super excited about? You got in, you did the first lesson, and then you just stopped? You may have even blamed yourself for that. That's sort of become an industry standard in course creation. To be fair, could have been you. But I'm going to challenge you to blame it on the course design and to not do that to your own clients. In this video, we're going to cover what to do after that first lesson so that clients can continue towards successfully reaching their goals. Who am I? I am Dr. Catrina Mitchum, and I have been designing and redesigning courses online since 2009. So after that first lesson, let's say we've got them through the first 48 hours, we've got them through that first week, people start to drop off of courses at a faster rate for a variety of reasons. The top one is that intrinsic motivation can start to wear off. It can need some help. That initial excitement is gone. They have to actually start doing the work of the course, which might be challenging. They could be confused or overwhelmed. They might have lost sight of their why, right? And that leads back to that intrinsic motivation. And this can happen pretty quickly because you are kind of, as the course creator and keeping them in and engaged, you're kind of always competing with the outside world, right? You're teaching adulting adults. And so the course that they bought is going to frequently be the last thing on their list, right? There's this thing called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so if their basic needs aren't being met, then they're not going to be able to learn. People start to drop off because, as I mentioned earlier, the actual work begin, and so challenges can start to get in the way. They might get stuck on the action, the doing of the tasks. They might get stuck on the materials. So things like questions might not vibe, right? They may not be digging deep enough or doing it in a way that makes sense to them. So their response to something might be, well, I don't know, or there's not enough connection between the content and what you're asking them to do. Sometimes courses are too challenging too quickly. People kind of need some quick wins periodically before we start digging into the meat of anything challenging we're asking them to do. And kind of connected to that is no celebration, right? And so this is connected to those quick wins. In both cases, you need to have that space and that time carved out into the course design to let them celebrate, no matter how small the thing is. Because remember, at some point, these were small wins that were important to you as well. Even if right now it feels like steps you don't even really take externally because you're so used to doing the thing that you're trying to teach them to do. Another challenge that they come up against is feeling unprepared. So if your course, and I'm guilty of this too, uses too much industry jargon, that means it uses too many words that are very specific to what you're trying to teach, or jumping in too deep, that can cause them to feel unprepared. Now, sometimes we need to use words that are used in our industry, and in that case, you need to define often and repetitively. They also come up against or stop because of roadblocks. So if there's unresolved tech issues, that's a big one, or the marketing and the course just don't match. And this is one that I've talked about frequently. You should go check out my Dookie Monster post on LinkedIn from, oh gosh, it's almost 2 years ago now. The marketing and the course just don't match. Now, that could be because you have fancy marketing and a shitty course, or it could be because the thing that you were marketing isn't the thing you actually ended up teaching. And so making sure there's overlap there is important. Another thing that can impact motivation to continue is not having feedback or check-ins, right? So when they have wins or when they have failures or when they're not sure of something, learners want to share. So not just celebrations, but also sometimes when they're unsure of how something is working, offering feedback or offering check-ins, just, time to basically bounce ideas. Like, how does this sound to you as the expert? Can really help in their continued motivation to work toward their goals. It also shows them that you actually care, right? So there's a lot of research that shows a direct connection between someone that's learning something and how connected they feel to the person teaching them and how well they do in learning the thing that they're trying to learn. It creates a sense of belonging to this community. Even if you don't have like community support and folks aren't talking to each other, it still creates that sense of connection. And that plays a big role in success. This next one is kind of related to too hard, too fast, but I'm going to call it pacing and overwhelm because it can happen at any point in the course, right? So let's say they make it past lesson 1 and lesson 2. You can still kind of go into quickly and overwhelm them if you haven't built a solid foundation before that. So this is also about timing, accepting that your clients are adulting adults, and like I said before, they may have invested in this course, but life happens, and that sick kid needs to be taken to the urgent care, and they have to take care of the bronchitis that came after their sick kid had to be taken to the urgent care. And we can't learn if our basic needs aren't met. So how do we fix these things? There are a few different types of engagement prompting that you can do to help folks continue to stay motivated. The first one is actually reflections. And I kind of harp on this one a little bit because the connection between metacognitive reflection, which means thinking about your thinking, offers space for check-ins and really helps solidify learning, right? This is another one where lots of research shows that this method works. And so you can use it as a way to have them check in with their goals and their motivations. It's a way to step back from the learning and reevaluate how far they've come, how far they haven't come, and reassess how they're going to continue moving forward. It gives them space to think about their thinking and learning, so it can help take care of some of those motivation and challenge issues that I talked about earlier. Support is another one I kind of harp on frequently, but this can be optional support, right? And so if you have a course that you're kind of hoping runs evergreen, this can be a place where you can upsell for feedback or do an upsell for like 30 minutes, $50, one-on-one, ready, set, go. These can be places, or should be places, where you know people tend to struggle with the concept or struggle with the application, right? It can help you help them through particularly challenging pieces. You can also offer asynchronous support. And what that means is you're not meeting them at the same place at the same time. You are just responding to questions, or this can even be done with feedback. I like a good feedback form with I will provide that feedback within 72 hours during the business week or whatever it happens to be. You can also check for design roadblocks. And this is about tracking the learning journey to see where they might be having issues. I do have a free checklist for that I will link in the description box. You can also create some if you're stuck here resources for some of those predictable challenges. So while having, one-on-ones or feedback is one way to handle it, you can also have like, hey, are you stuck? These are some ways you might dig yourself out of being stuck, right? And those are things that you pre-create. It can be like an FAQ section where you're answering common issues or where you're addressing, common challenges that people have at particular points. But it's up to you to identify where that challenge typically happens and then provide that extra support outside of the regular course space, because not everybody is going to have the same challenge at the same spot. And so you don't want to kind of clutter up the course design either. So another design piece is, and I've talked about this one before as well, but making sure you're breaking complex things down into easy to follow steps. And that, that really comes from knowing what the goals are, working backwards from those into the steps, and then outlining the tasks that they need to do in order to take each one of those steps. Another design roadblock, or another way to check your design for roadblocks, is to provide examples of good enough right? Sometimes people lose motivation and don't move through the course because they are perfectionists. And so you want to assume you've got all kinds of people coming to you. And so creating like good enough examples for each action step will help to overcome that perfectionism and continue moving forward. Building on past wins. And so I kind of already touched on that when I explained the issue of not celebrating. But this is a place to incorporate reflections and also build that into the design, right? This should be a stepping stone. It should be something they're doing frequently in that design of your course. So for me, in my program, first we create goals, then we get some feedback on them. Then we reflect on that feedback. We reflect on how we're doing. We reflect on whether or not there was an alignment or misalignment between what we thought and what other people thought they were going to get out of a course on XYZ. Then we start working backwards on our steps and our tasks. And then we get feedback on those from our audience, right? And so this is how, like for me, it's reflecting on the feedback and the misalignment, but it's also reflecting on starting to pull things together so that they can see their progress from creating the goals to creating the steps and tasks. Another way that we can kind of fix this motivation hurdle after that first week is the whys, right? And so this is another good reflection point, but also something you can have them weave throughout your whole design. So just having them think back to their whys before moving into a critical step or a challenging step can help with that intrinsic motivation as they work through difficult pieces. You can have case studies showing real world application, right? So whys are often directly connected to their real lives, the real things that they want to do. And so having examples of how it works in the real world can help with this. And you can have, and this is something I talk about a lot too, but you can have this is why this matters, and have those call outs in your modules, right? So you make those connections. This is why this thing is important to the goals that you're trying to reach. This is how it builds off of the things that we've already done. Another way to kind of keep that motivation going is tracking progress, but beyond checkboxes, right? So we don't want checkbox courses. Completion is about reaching the goals, not about checking the boxes. And at this point, you're probably tired of hearing me say reflection, but tracking progress beyond checkboxes means you're helping them move toward those goals. So having them revisit the goals and reassess where they are is really valuable. Their goals might have shifted. They should be recognizing that and articulating how it's changed, why it's changed, and how they're going to keep aligned with the course moving forward. You could create a reflective tracker, right, where they're doing this throughout the course at pivotal points. You could have visual progress indicators beyond checkboxes, of course, like having a drawn out map of the journey and where they're going to land at different points and places, what they might be achieving, how they might be feeling, where they are at each module and lesson in reaching those goals. You can have them do portfolio building as they progress, especially if your course is on something that is creative or, I've been doing a lot of branding courses lately. So something on branding, start having them pull in pieces to a portfolio that they're reflecting on, of course, and talking about why they like this one, why this piece or this image particularly fits the thing that they're going for. And then you can have them do before and after comparisons. You can both show examples for yourself, but also have them do some of that work. And the last fix, which is probably perhaps the more important, is timing. So take the amount of time that you think it will take them to do whatever in your course and double it. Then ask them how long it takes. The point here is you kind of want to get an average, right? You want a range. You don't want to say, this should take you 10 minutes. It's going to take some people less time and some people more time. Another way to do that is to kind of say, take 10 minutes to do this, right? Especially if it's a reflective activity and you want them to kind of dig a little deeper, give them good prompts, but also have them set a timer and just write without stopping or talk without stopping or however you're having them do the reflection. Because a lot of times if we have the time, then we just start rambling. And those ramblings can often be really poignant. So some things to build into your course design for this are having appropriately sized weekly tasks and content, right? So this is kind of finding that delicate balance between not too little and not too much. It's kind of the Goldilocks zone of enough. Having catch up paths for people who fall behind. And so if it's a kind of a self-paced course, behind might be a little different. They might be feeling behind and need some activities or tasks to kind of get them back on the wagon. And if you are kind of running a live class, then you will need to help them catch up to where everybody else is. Building in some catch up modules isn't a bad idea either. And these can be like framed as pauses that are strategic for learning and implementing, right? So sometimes some of the work that you're asking folks to do is going to take longer to implement. And so it's about both setting them up with enough time, but also keeping them engaged during that time. The last one is that you can also include kind of shortcuts. So if you only have 20 minutes this week, if you only have 30 minutes today, some of the things that they can focus on. Really, your whole course should be kind of broken down that way. But, if you designed it so that it's going to be 30 minutes a week, give them the 15-minute shortcut for that week. Like, these are the top things that you need to focus on for this week. Okay, so have you done all of those things and clients are still dropping off? In my next video, I'll be covering activities and why people don't do them. If it's not there yet, it'll be there next week. In the meantime, grab that free Course Fixer checklist in the description box.